Hello, my little starling. Welcome to tonight's episode of Karma and Case Files. This is a place where we uncover truths and feelings and emotions with a spiritual twist and an intuition that I've been gifted that I'm going to share with you guys and how I feel about these people and why they did what they did. We explore much more than meets the eye, and I also do a cute little art piece that's inspired by the story over there in the corner. It'll pop up right over here in a minute. Before we start, please know this episode discusses domestic violence and descriptions of murder in a very, very gruesome sense. Nothing graphic is going to be shown, but the events are intense and they are real. So if this topic feels heavy, please skip this one to protect your peace. Otherwise, we're going to dive into it. Viewer discretion is advised. And for the ones that want to stick around, I've lit an incense to protect our peace with a bright white light, and all of our energy is going to be safe here. So no worries there. Our story begins in 1955, and it truly was a childhood shaped by violence. Katherine Mary Knight was born on October 24th. Oh, she's a Libra. I usually really like female Libras, but it's almost her birthday too, so happy early birthday, I guess. Anyway, she was born in 1955 in the quiet town in the quiet town of Tenterfield, Wales, in Australia. So that's an industrial town. It had the closed abattoir, a silo, a town so small that it had two pubs. They were actually one on top of the other. So if that gives you any type of a resonance of how small this community was, it was really tiny. So that would make the next instance a challenging one, since her parents, Ken Knight and Barbara Rowan, I don't know, Rowan, they were caught in an affair. And it really shocked their small community. And, people talk, they always have, and this was nothing unlike that. Rumors spread. Essentially, Katherine grew up in chaos. Fights, alcohol, and fear were a normal part of her daily life from birth, honestly. Even her teachers recalled a withdrawn little girl who, had sudden outbursts of rage. She was rumored to bully and pick on the smaller kids, anyone that, she could really target, and basically just terrorize anybody she could. Trauma, left unchecked, as we all know, or should know, was already taking root, and if people had stepped in and done their part, we probably wouldn't be here right now. So, just wanted you to take a moment and think about that. If you see something, say something. You don't have to be a person that has to say something in order to say something, regardless. So, we're getting into the 70s now, okay? In her teens, Katherine joined the local slaughterhouse. Her family were, abattoir already. They were already part of the slaughterhouse. They were already, really well crafted in their skills, and kind of taught Katherine their ways, taught her that this is how you can provide for your family, and that's what she was doing. That's what she had always done. She wasn't squeamish, and she was very skilled at what she did. She was quick, she was strong, she was efficient, she earned respect and fear. See, she came from a family of abattoirs, and they just passed that trait down to her, and so she wasn't so appalled by the profession like some people may be. This really was a dream of hers that she had thought about since she was a young girl, and she was very, very skilled at her job. Let me just say, this girl, she was strong, tall, strong, knew how to slice up some meat and provide, put it out on the table. You know what I'm saying? She could chop some steak. She could do something. She was proud of herself. She had a good skill that had been passed down, and she was following in her family's footsteps. So, as far as anybody knew, they were a little afraid of her, but hey, what's wrong with that, right? As long as it doesn't get to the extent that we're going to get to. Coworkers and her stepmother even speculated that she kept her own personal set of knives above her bed, because they could be handy, in her own words. Whatever that's supposed to mean. Okay, so she was already a little creepy, right? She's already big, strong, cuts up a bunch of meat, already kind of a creepy person to begin with, and now she's keeping knives above her bed. Okay, this line would obviously haunt investigators for a very long time. Regardless of anything going on outside of the fact, people grow up, teenage girls grow up, they find people, they find love, and, Miss Katherine, she stumbled upon a young man named David Kellett, and she was 19, and this was in 1974, and they got married very quickly. Yay, right? Maybe this will help her feel better about herself. Maybe this will help calm her down a little bit, give her something to work towards. That's what we can hope, but it doesn't. Or we wouldn't be here right now, would we? So anyway, so David here, David, he was a truck driver and he drove a lot. And, Miss Catherine was under the influence that truck drivers had girlfriends in every town. And so she was always a very jealous person. She was always kind of like just suspicious, just always, threatening, if you are ever going to cheat on me, then blah, blah, blah. ABC, you know what I'm saying, XYZ. So, David didn't shy away from telling his coworkers about this either. He talked about it, but he made it into a joking tone, so they never really actually took him seriously. And that's kind of good, kind of bad, because anyway, we'll get there. So David, all right, he was a truck driver, like we said. He drank hard and he fought even harder. So maybe she had met her match at some point in some way, some weird twisted way. I don't know. Maybe it's a match made in heaven. No, it wasn't. Spoiler alert, it was not a match made in heaven. It was actually very toxic and they should have stayed away from each other. But sometimes we go for what's familiar and not what's good for us. So surprisingly, on their wedding night of all nights, ended up with David unconscious. Let me explain. Back it up a little bit. So, Katherine had been hearing and talking about, between the girls, they were having their little tea party, whatever, talking with her stepmom, like, oh yeah, so what should I expect on the wedding night, et cetera, et cetera. And they had all told her that, our guys 4 or 5 times went there, right? So Katherine had expectations. And when her poor husband only went 2-3 rounds, she was pissed. She was really upset. She was angry. She thought that, that meant that he didn't love her like the other people's husbands loved them. He wasn't willing to sacrifice. But he was a hard-working dude, okay? And he drank a lot. We've all heard of whiskey wink. You know what I'm saying? I think it's not that hard to figure out why he couldn't last that many rounds. But regardless, that upset her so much to the fact that she actually hit him in the head with a frying pan and knocked him unconscious on their wedding night. So, it's not looking great for Katherine and David. It got to the point where every single one of her partners reported threats, injuries, and they even got restraining orders against Miss Katherine, okay? Still, she managed to keep her job, raise her kids, and appear normal to everybody outside of a relationship. Because this dude, he didn't take the kids with him. David did not take the kids with him. He left them with Katherine, so she kept on playing like she was Miss Mary, happy housewife, just honky-dory and going to work and getting home and taking care of the kids. And again, I don't know what kind of parent she was. I hope that she was a good one, because she was not a good wife or partner, so we can hope for the best. Regardless, she was known, in the community to be charming and charismatic and funny, and she was capable, like I said earlier in the video, she gained respect for being good at her job. She truly portrayed herself as a great person. So these allegations of abuse, they were almost questionable when they were brought up, and that kind of kept her under the radar for a little bit longer than need be, if I'm being completely honest. Honestly, she was displaying typical traits of being a narcissist, had to have control, had to know what was going on. Everything has to be about her, but appeared to be great and, made herself look like she's a really good person, but behind closed doors, that was a completely different story. So, with all that, everyone still said she was still an unpredictable person that could flip a switch in a second, and nobody could ever escape or, get away from her control or her anger or her outbursts, like not even herself. Okay, so she couldn't even control herself. And in the mask of many abusers wear, until it cracks, of course, I'm sure we've all met a person or two that just does not sit well with you, even when you have no reason not to like them and everybody else thinks they're such a great person. Like, just deep down, some feels off. That's the kind of person that Katherine was. Everybody kind of knew, but they didn't know why they knew. Yeah. And eventually, she meets a man named John Price, okay? Poor John. Poor John Charles Thomas Price. Born April 4th, 1955. Also known as Pricey. He was a single father of 3, and he was an Aries. So, knowing what we know about Miss Katherine, normally Libra women are a little more easygoing, but they still like to have fairness, balance. They don't like to be ruffled, if that makes sense. And they do a great job whenever they're allowed to be in charge. But see, John here being an Aries, Aries definitely, because they're the start of the zodiac, think that they should be in charge and behave as so. And they don't like to listen to anybody else, and they don't really like to do what anybody tells them to do. They have to figure it out on their own. So, as we can imagine, it's not a great, it's not a relationship that was written in the stars by any means. They're actually completely wrong for each other. And now we'll find out just how bad their relationship ended up being. Friends describe Pricey as funny, generous. He was a good dad. He was a hard worker. And he was usually the first person at work. Never ever missed work. Mostly, open the doors type guy. Like, he was always there. Everybody knew, oh, he's going to be there before we get in. He's going to open the doors for us. That's how John was, okay? Of course, when you met Katherine, sparks flew. But not in a good way. I mean, in the start of it, yeah, it was good. It was passionate. It was fiery. It was like, this girl, she's just like me. We both want to have control and take our, I don't know. I get it. I'm sure it was really passionate and stuff. And, unfortunately, soon their tempers also met each other. And those were not so compatible. They were also very similar. And that's very incompatible at the end of the day. You don't want somebody that's too much like you, right? Anyway, it was like that with all of her relationships, so what else could we expect? They moved rather quickly, actually, because within months, he moved her into his home in Aberdeen, North South Wales. That started as a passionate and very fiery bond, but very quickly turned toxic. She recorded arguments. She destroyed his belongings. At one point, she tore up every single piece of his clothes, every item of his clothing, because he was 10 minutes late for coming home from work one day, so she thought that he was cheating on her. So she's this kind of person, very, very toxic. She would spread rumors at his job. She actually got him fired, because at one point John had taken home a discarded first aid kit that had already been thrown away by his workplace. I mean, sure, you shouldn't take things. You should never steal. Stealing's not okay. But the situation itself, I mean, it's tough. It really is. Excuse me, because he ended up losing his job from that. And yeah, then what's he gonna do? He's a dad of 3. He's, work is all he's really got. And she just took that away from him, and now he's got to find out a new way to provide for his family. This lady is literally the definition of playing dirty, okay? She did everything she could to make this man's life miserable, because she didn't have complete control over him, and that is a very sad way to live. When he tried to end the relationship, she begged him, she threatened him, she pulled out every single stop she could think of. And, when that didn't work, obviously she exploded. And it even got to a point where he had met another woman, had moved upstate, and was, living with her for a little while. And this bitch, Katherine, has a mental breakdown in the hospital. And of course, having sympathy for a person that he cares about, John was worried about her, and he came back. He did. He went right back to the house, and they spent the evening together. And I'm sure the guy had a trauma bond, with all the back and forth. And at this point, empathy was not good for him. It was not good for him to have empathy in that moment, and it ultimately is what caused his passing. So violence certainly defined their relationship, but that did not stop them from staying together long enough to have 2 children, because that always makes people happy, right? Add a couple more stress balls to the situation. I love my kids so much. They're amazing. But if you're not in a good place, don't add anything else to the mix. It's common sense. You know what I mean? You got to be in a good place. I digress. Anyway, so please, if you can choose to not bring people into violence, just don't. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say about it. I digress. Okay. Back to the story. Anyway, David eventually fled after yet another attack. So good on him. And hopefully he took the kids with him, right? Because why would you leave children with this monster? She's already beating you. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe she's a good mom. I didn't see anything about her being a bad mom when I was doing my research. So maybe she was just really tired of men. I don't know. I think she had a couple mental illnesses for sure. It's pretty obvious. But her rage didn't stop, when he left, obviously. Because Would we really expect it to? No. It just moved on to the poor person that came next. And that pattern repeated through the 80s and the 90s. She entered new relationships back to back. Each one ended in terror. She was violent in every single one, threatening, accusatory, suspicious. She was just not the good wife that you want to come home to. Nobody that you're rushing home to see what she made for dinner because you're afraid she's going to hit you with the frying pan on the way through the door. Just not a good person. John was a drinker, but that did not keep him from being decent on the surface. And that is the big reason why functional alcoholism is probably the most terrifying and dangerous type of alcoholism that exists. Because you can't even tell. People are slowly killing themselves every single day, and they're still showing up for work on time. They're still taking their kids to do fun stuff. And it's so normalized now that it's scary. And I think that's something that needs to be discussed more. So let me know how you feel about that in the comments below. I want to hear from you too. I mean, this is Katherine we're talking about here. Australia's very own female Hannibal Lecter, also known as the Maneater. But, wait, did I say too much? Oops. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to it. He ignored the danger, right? So in 1998, Price's co-workers noticed bruises and fear in their poor body. And we're going to back up just a little bit so that we can get back to the story. It wouldn't be long before Price's co-workers noticed bruises and fear in their body. He even told them, if I don't show up, it's because she killed me. Like in a joking manner, like we talked about earlier. Like, he was literally crying for help, but making it into a joke. And it's so real because so many men do this. You know what I mean? So many men are afraid to talk about it. And men are victims as well at the end of the day, and they're often denied the attention that they deserve and the validation. And I want every single one of you to know that you matter, your feelings matter, no matter what your gender is, no matter your race, no matter your sexuality, religion, it doesn't matter. We're all one here at the end of the day. And I want you to know that this is a safe space. So if you feel like you need to just, discuss something, talk about something, please drop it below. I'll do a shout out in the next video. I'll make sure I give you my advice and how I feel like you should handle the situation. And, just know that you are loved and you are welcome here. And this is a community. And I want to know how you feel about this case as well. So please let me know. Comment on your thoughts, if you've ever been in a DV situation, if you've ever left a DV situation, comment so somebody can get some advice, how you escape, the best options for them. Like, this is something that I really want to take seriously, not just true crime, not just art, but like a community of helping people, get away from toxicity and to live better lives. That's my whole goal as a Dolly Mama, is to help enrich everyone's lives that I come into contact with. So if you're watching this, I'm talking about you, specifically you, because I love you so much and I'm so glad you're here. So anyway, back to the story, because it's about to get kind of dark. So I wanted to give you a nice little uplifting message before that happens. Sorry. Back to the story. These friends, though, they thought he was joking. They laughed nervously, thinking he was exaggerating the extent of the abuse he was, enduring on a daily basis. But as we all know, he wasn't. And in February of 2000, these were his final days. In late February, our boy had finally had enough. Okay, they'd been together for years. She had not stopped her abuse. It had been constant. He'd been telling his friends at work. Nobody was taking him seriously. He figured, if something's going to change, I have to make that change right now. So he did. He took off. And, after another fight, he kicked her ass out, right? Yay. Yay. Finally did it. Finally kicked her out. But no, we wouldn't be here if it was a happy ending. So this bitch, she went out, and you know what she did? You'll never guess. You'll never guess. Miss Abattoir herself. She bought a new set of shiny knives, butcher knives, right? Because she was a butcher. So, wow. Okay. It's about to get really dark, so buckle up or skip ahead if you are a bit sensitive to descriptions of gruesome crime. It was the evening of February 29th. Somehow she convinced him to welcome her back in. I'm sure under the demise of "I miss you, blah blah blah. I'm having a tough night. I just want to come love you." No, it's sad. It's really sad. But these women know what they're doing and they get what they want. So I guess it was just one of those nights for him. The poor guy. He just wanted some booty and ended up losing his booty. She came to his house. They had a little bit of drink, watching a movie, had some schmooksy time, some bedroom time, I guess he went, to go use the restroom after they'd finished having their little funsies. And when he came back, is when investigators believe the initial attack started. Um, this was supposed to be like a no strings attached hookup, right, with your ex. And ultimately, that became the last time he ever saw anyone again. If you listen to your gut, these things probably won't happen. And I'm not victim blaming, because the poor guy does not deserve any kind of blame for what happened to him. Like, this is the worst person in the entire world, in my opinion, that I've seen so far. Um, she deserves to rot forever, and she is, and I'm very glad about that. So, neighbors later reported to hear nothing, which is very unfortunate and very, uncommon for Pricey, because, as we discussed earlier, he was on time every single day. His truck was still parked outside, hours after he was supposed to be at work. This was a red flag, and this prompted them to call 911. His coworkers, they saw that he would never miss work. They called in, so multiple people noticed that something was wrong. They called it in, and when police got there, it was the most grotesque scene they'd ever seen in their entire life. And, it actually caused a few officers to quit their job after being in the force for 20 plus years. It still affects multiple people to this day, where they have to receive therapy for their CPTSD. So here we go. We're going to get into the detail. That morning, police would find a scene so disturbing it made seasoned detectives cry. It had officers quit their jobs, and the remaining needed years of therapy to cope with the extreme PTSD they suffered after. Out of respect to the families, I'm not going to go into super grotesque details, but I'll be brief and vague with my description. So Katherine here used her abattoir skills as a butcher the way she would at her job onto Mr. Price. She brought her work home with her in the most sadistic, grotesque, unimaginable way possible. She made a stew with potatoes, with carrots, cooked steaks from the buttocks of the man she claimed to love, and thankfully didn't actually, tried to feed one of these steaks to the dog, to each of his children, and had one set out for herself as well. I believe at the end of the day, she thought that if she couldn't have him, then nobody else could. And now, really, I just want to take a moment of silence for the men who suffered at the hands of her unforgiving abuse. And to John, who paid the ultimate price of having empathy and not trusting the signs of something very ominous. Please, people, before you just allow toxic people into your lives, promise me that you'll think, just for a second. Katherine was arrested at the scene, thankfully. She had taken more medication than prescribed in a way people believe showed intentions of her taking her own life after she committed this gruesome act. EMS checked her out and sent her straight to prison once they established that she was okay, thankfully. So in 2001, after a trial where she continued to show erratic behavior, 2001, this is not that long ago, people. This is very, very recent, okay? So in the courtroom, she went back and forth between being very, very, very calm 99% of the time to that slight little bit she would start freaking out and acting like she was crazy so that she could argue insanity. She had a mental breakdown in the courtroom for show, but doctors and psychiatrists later concluded that she was of sound mind and very capable of making rational decisions, and that insanity would not be a possible cause of this act. This woman was actually sane. How terrifying is that? Clinically sane. Ugh. Finally, she pled guilty to the murder of John Price. The judge called it appalling and inhuman, which is putting it pretty light, don't you think? For obvious reasons, no jury was needed. The evidence spoke louder than any witness ever could, and this woman had and continues to have the audacity to remain blind to her actions and claims she only remembers them having a moment of passion, him using the restroom, and then she fell asleep. She's stuck with that story this entire time. It's wild to me. The delusion, but she's sane. This woman's a very good liar. It's crazy. And she even went and withdrew $1,000 from his bank account after it happened. She took a shower. She parked her car down the street a couple blocks and hid it behind a house. but she doesn't remember anything. Right. And she's saying, was it the medicine? What was the medication she took afterwards trying to end her life? Maybe that kind of blanked her? I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing I can even think of, because otherwise this doesn't even sound legitimate. And I don't even know why anybody would fall for it. And there's never been a clear reason discussed or admitted to why she decided to take the life of the person she claimed to love so much. It's wild. She currently is in prison, life without parole, at Silverwater Women's Correction Center. Katherine became the first woman in Australian history to receive a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Yay, Katherine! Good job. Fucking crazy bitch. Her file is permanently marked as never to be released, so we don't have to worry about her coming out and using her skills on anybody else. Thank goodness. Even now she shows little remorse. Apparently she's like a bad bitch where she's held, giving advice and even being called grandma by some of the other inmates. Wild to me. I don't know why people would idolize that. That's insane. And, you know, it's safe to say that the case shocked Australia, and truly it shocked the whole world. There have been documentaries, books, and you guys can find a lot of those here on YouTube, and also different podcasts, different books, and psychology studies that dissect what led her to this moment. Was it childhood trauma? Was it mental illness or malice? Was it jealousy, like anger, possessiveness, narcissism? It's what do you think? What do you think was the main cause of her actions? Because to be that unhinged and to still be clinically sane is very, very perplexing to me. I'm having a hard time really figuring out what was her motive? Why'd she do it? He already invited her back in, you know what I mean? Like, clearly she had the go ahead. The door was still cracked. So why end his life and ultimately ruin yours for the rest of it? I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of all of these things together. We'll never know the truth unless she tells us, which clearly she's not going to, because she's an old ass bitch now. And she ain't said nothing yet. So let's not hold our breath for that. What is clear, though, is the pain left behind for John Price's family. Like we said, he had children, you know, and I just want to extend lots of love and hope for justice and answers to each and every one of them, and anybody else who was impacted by this, you know, any of his coworkers, any of his friends. He was said to be a really likable guy, and he should have been here. He should still be here, honestly. It's not even been that long. He should still be here with his children, and it's sad that he can't be because of some crazy little psycho that just had to do some out-of-pocket bullshit. Anyway. Just going to do a little reflection here. As always, thank you so much for coming and watching my video and, you know, discussing this with me in the comments. Thank you for being interested in this kind of stuff and giving me a leg to stand on. This is a dream come true. And every time I cover a story like this, I come back to one truth. And it's the cycles of trauma won't end unless someone decides to break them. Is that going to be you? I know it was me. I know you can, because I'm proof of it. You can walk away. You can cut everyone off that doesn't want what's best for you. And you can live your best life and actually follow your dreams and chase your dreams and find the people who support you and actually like you. Because you're a likable person. You are, every single one of you. And I'm just so glad that you decided to stay here with me for this little snippet of your day. Honored. And I'm always here to remind you that you have a choice. And I believe in you. Okay? Don't ever give up on yourself. With that being said, because the story is so heavy, I just want to do a little reminder that if you or someone you love is in danger, to please reach out. Because the story is in Australia, you can call 1-800-RESPECT. That's 1-800-737-732. Or in the US and Canada, dial 988 for help. Thank you again. With this being my first video, I'm going to say that 8,000 times and just keep reminding you guys that, you know, thank you again for walking through this difficult story with me. From the bottom of my heart, I really hope you enjoyed my delivery, and if so, please make sure to like and subscribe, because I'm going to do videos like this every single Sunday. It's free, and it really helps me boost my channel and figure out what you guys like and dislike, and then I can keep making content like that. So with that being said, I am Cody Alexandra, aka the Dolly Mama, reminding you that even in our darkest places, there's always a lesson about healing and humanity, and there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Have a beautiful week. drop your story ideas below if there's anybody or anything that you want me to cover next week, or the week after that, whenever. I'm gonna be doing this for a while, so join me next spooky Sunday with another episode of Karma and Case Files, where we face the shadows and we keep our light. Good night.